I want to start with an uncomfortable truth today.
Okay.
It's something we whisper about in business circles, but we really rarely say out loud. And that is, we are obsessed with growth, especially in logistics.
Oh, absolutely.
It's all about the fleet size for you. You start with one truck, you dream of five.
Right.
You get to five, you want 10. The assumption is always the exact same. If I get bigger, I get safer. If I get bigger, the margins get fatter, and I can finally, take a vacation.
It's the whole economies of scale promise.
Yeah.
We are taught that from day one. Volume solves everything.
But then you actually look at the reality. You look at the guy who doubled his fleet last year, and he doesn't look like he's on vacation.
Not at all.
He looks like he hasn't slept in a solid month. His phone is just ringing off the hook, his drivers are unhappy, and his bank account, weirdly enough, doesn't really look that much better than when he was smaller.
It's the paradox of success. And that is exactly what we are unpacking in our deep dive today. We are looking at a really fascinating article from Greystride. It's titled, Why Change Management is Critical for Sustainable Fleet Growth. And I'll be honest with you, when I first saw that title, I thought, okay, change management, here come the buzzwords.
Oh, I had the exact same reaction. It sounds like something a consultant charges you 10 grand to put on a PowerPoint slide, right?
Right.
While your actual trucks are just sitting idle in the yard.
Exactly.
It feels completely disconnected from the actual grit of the job.
That is the reaction most people have. But this piece argues that dismissing it is actually dangerous. It frames growth not as a reward, but as a disruption.
The disruption.
Yeah, and that is a crucial pivot in thinking. When you add a truck to your fleet or you land a massive new contract, you aren't just adding revenue. You are breaking your existing operational flow.
Growth is disruption. That's a heavy opener. So the idea is that we are literally breaking our own businesses by trying to build them.
In a way, yes. The article points out that the systems you built, the way you talk to drivers, how you handle your maintenance, even just how you file invoices, those were designed for the size you were,
Right.
not the size you are now. If you don't actively manage that transition, and that is the change management part, you don't get efficiency. You get friction. And friction costs you money.
Let's really dig into that friction, because I think we've all seen it, but we might not have labeled it correctly. The source describes a very specific trajectory. It mentions this 5 to 15 truck gap. What exactly happens in that specific window?
Well, that is the valley of death for many logistics companies.
The Valley of Death.
Yeah, think about running 5 trucks. You know every driver's name. You know their kids' names. You probably know the strange noise the gearbox on truck 3 makes when it's cold. You run the whole business on instinct and text messages.
Right. You are the system. The owner is the operating system.
Exactly. But then you scale up to 15 or 20 trucks. Suddenly, you physically cannot inspect every tire yourself. You can't take every single call from a driver who is lost at a depot. You have to rely on processes, and you have to rely on other people.
Makes sense.
And the article highlights that this is exactly where the cracks appear. And these cracks aren't usually mechanical failures. They are communication failures.
The symptoms they listed were painfully familiar to anyone in this industry. Things like admin teams just getting totally overwhelmed, or maintenance schedules suddenly becoming wildly inconsistent.
That's what they call the reactive trap. When you were small, being reactive was your superpower. A problem pops up, you jump in your backy, you fix it. You're in hero mode.
Hearing mode, yeah.
But at scale, if you are constantly reacting, you are bleeding cash. The source mentions that admin teams start drowning in paperwork because the old put it in the inbox system that just doesn't work when you have triple the volume.
And what about the drivers? How does this impact them? Because usually when management starts feeling the heat...
The drivers are the first ones to get burned.
Right.
Well, this is where the change management failure really hits hard. You start throwing new rules at them to try and regain some sort of control. Fill out this new form, download this new app, check in every 2 hours.
Yeah.
But because you haven't managed the change properly, you haven't actually explained the drivers just see it as red tape, so they push back.
Or they just completely ignore it. I mean, how many times have we seen a fleet install a incredibly fancy new telematics system and the drivers just treat it like a dashboard ornament?
That is a perfect example. And that brings us to what I think is the most important sentence in the entire Greystride article. If you take one thing away from this deep dive, it should be this line: trucks don't resist change, people do.
I want to just pause on that for a second. Trucks don't resist change, people do. And it sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? Like a bumper sticker. But when you actually apply it to a fleet...
It explains almost every single failure. You can buy the best hardware in the world. You can buy a brand new fleet of Scanias or Volvos tomorrow morning. Those trucks will do exactly what they're told.
Right. They don't complain.
They won't complain about the route. They
Yeah.
won't argue about the fuel policy, but the human being behind the wheel. That is your variable.
So we focus on the hardware because it's controllable. It's really easy to just buy a truck. It's incredibly hard to change a mindset.
Precisely. The article actually calls this the tech fallacy. We see a problem, maybe our fuel costs are way too high. So the instinct is, let's buy a sensor. Let's get a new software platform. We spend thousands on the tech,
Hmm.
but we spend zero time on the behavior.
I see this all the time. It's the shiny toy syndrome. You buy the software, you deploy it, and then 6 months later you look at the usage stats and you realize absolutely nobody has logged in since the training day.
Or worse, they are logging in, but they're feeding it bad data because they just don't value it. If a driver thinks a new system is just Big Brother watching them, they will find ways to work around it.
Oh, they always find a way.
And then you have a confused office team looking at data that doesn't match reality, and a frustrated driver team who feels micromanaged. You have actually paid good money to make your business less efficient.
Wow. Let's talk about the actual cost of this, because I think there is a huge tendency to wave this off as just soft skills. You know, the rough and tumble logistics guy is saying, I don't need change management, I just need drivers who do what they're told. But the article is pretty clear. This isn't just about feelings, it is about the bottom line.
It is massively expensive to ignore this. The source uses the phrase, quietly drains your business.
Quietly, that is the scary part.
It is. It's not a sudden explosion. It's a slow leak. Let's take a very specific example from the text that I found absolutely fascinating. Tire costs.
Yeah, walk me through that. How does bad change management destroy a tire? Because to me, a blown tire is a road hazard. It's not a management philosophy issue.
Okay, so let's say you're growing. You realize your fuel bill is way too high, so you implement a strict new policy. Every driver must check tire pressures before every single trip, and they have to log it in a new app.
Makes total sense on paper. Correct pressure saves you fuel.
Right. But you don't manage the change, you just send out a memo. The drivers are already under massive pressure to meet tight delivery slots on the N3. They see this new app requirement as just one more thing slowing them down. They don't understand the financial impact, they just know they are running late.
So they fake it.
They fake it. They tick the box in the app without actually getting down on their knees to check the pressure, so they drive on underinflated tires. 3 weeks later, blowout. Now you have a huge roadside repair bill, a missed delivery penalty, and potentially a damaged rim.
And the owner is sitting back in the office screaming, but we have a system for this. Why did the system fail?
The system didn't fail. The change management failed. You didn't get buy-in. You didn't align the driver's daily reality with the office's goals. That blowout wasn't caused by a nail in the road. It was caused by a disconnect in culture.
That puts a very real dollar figure on it. And then you add in the other costs they mentioned. Turnover, for instance.
Turnover is the really big one. If your business feels chaotic because you are growing too fast without structure, your best people leave. They go to the competitor who isn't a mess. And in this industry, losing a reliable senior driver is a massive hit. You lose their institutional knowledge, their relationship with the client. It's a nightmare.
Okay, so you have officially terrified us. We're growing, it's chaotic, the tires are blowing out, and Dave is quitting. How do we actually fix it? The article outlines a solution, but does it give us actionable steps? Or is it just saying, communicate better?
Thankfully, it gets highly practical. Greystride breaks it down into 4 pillars. And I really like these because they aren't HR fluff. They are solid operational anchors.
Hit me with the first one.
Clear expectations. And before you roll your eyes at that, think about how often this is actually missed.
We'll drive the truck, deliver the box. Isn't that the expectation?
That is the job. That is not the expectation of change. If you are introducing a new process, say, digital proof of delivery, you need to be explicitly clear about what good actually looks like.
Right.
Is good uploading it within 5 minutes of delivery? Or is good just getting it done by Friday? If you don't define it, everyone just creates their own definition.
And then you get mad when their definition doesn't match yours.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Pillar 2 is simple, practical processes. This goes right back to our tech discussion. If the new way of working is 10 times harder than the old way, no amount of leadership speech is going to make it stick.
It has to be usable. If a driver has to click through 12 different screens just to log a fuel stop, they're going to hate you.
They just won't do it. The source emphasizes that the process must serve the worker, not just the manager. If it doesn't make the driver's life easier in some way, or at least neutral, Resistance is absolutely guaranteed.
Okay, pillar 3. This one really resonated with me. Consistent leadership behavior.
This is the hardest one by far. In logistics, everything is volatile. Fuel prices go up, ports get congested, clients change their minds, the ground is always moving under you. The leader has to be the anchor.
But isn't that kind of impossible? If the market is chaotic, doesn't the leader have to react?
You have to react to the market, but you cannot be reactive with your people. If you launch a massive new safety initiative on Monday, but then on Wednesday you are screaming at a driver to just get it there fast because a client is shouting, you have just killed your safety initiative.
Wow.
You've signaled that the rules don't actually matter when the pressure's on.
That is the Sunday sermon versus Monday morning problem. We preach safety, but we strictly incentivize speed.
And your team watches that gap very closely. If your behavior isn't consistent with the change you are asking for, they will default to your behavior, not your words.
Which perfectly leads us to the 4th pillar, and I think this is the most nuanced one of them all. Accountability without blame.
Yeah, this is a very tricky balance.
It sounds like a contradiction. I am holding you accountable, but I am not blaming you. I can hear some of the old school fleet owners listening to this saying, well, if he messed up, he messed up. Why shouldn't I blame him?
It's all about the goal. Is the goal to punish, or is the goal to fix a problem? The source argues that when you are in a transition phase, when you are growing and changing systems, people will make mistakes. It's inevitable.
Right.
If your immediate reaction is to blast them, they just hide the next mistake.
They stop reporting the near misses. They stop asking questions.
Exactly. And that is incredibly dangerous. Accountability without blame means saying, we agreed on a process. You didn't follow it. Let's look at why. Was the training bad? Was the app down? Did you just forget?
Finding the root cause.
Yes. We own the error. We fix the error, but we do not treat the employee as the enemy.
It's a total shift from you failed to the process failed, or your understanding of it failed. It keeps the conversation constructive.
And that builds trust. When your team trusts you, they will follow you through the messy parts of growth. If they fear you, they will just keep their heads down and let the business crumble around them.
I want to make this tangible for the listener who is sitting there right now thinking, is this me? Am I the bottleneck here? The article lists some red flags. I call this the look in the mirror section.
It's a diagnostic test, and it is not comfortable.
Let's pick the one that I think hurts the most to hear. The business depends too much on a few individuals.
Ah, yes. The Dave in dispatch syndrome.
Every single logistics company has a Dave.
Everyone has a Dave. Dave has been there for 10 years. Dave knows every route, every client's quirks, and every driver's cell number by heart. The business runs smoothly because Dave is a genius. But what happens when you double the fleet size?
Dave burns out. Or Dave gets sick. Or Dave asks for a raise you can't afford and he leaves.
And suddenly you realize you didn't actually build a business. You built a dependency on Dave. Sustainable growth means moving that knowledge out of Dave's head and into a system. Change management is often about shifting from hero-based operations to process-based operations.
Which is really tough because we love our heroes. We love the guy who swoops in and saves the day. But you cannot scale heroism.
You really can't. Another massive red flag to watch out for is we are busy, but margins aren't improving.
That's the treadmill. You are running faster, sweating more, burning more diesel, but at the end of the month, the profit percentage is totally flat. Or worse, it's down.
That is the ultimate signal of unmanaged complexity. The friction costs, the rework, the missed invoices, the oops moments, those are eating up all the profit from your new growth. If you see that happening, stop buying trucks. Seriously. Stop expanding and fix the foundation first.
That is bold advice. Stop buying trucks. But it aligns with the whole premise. Growth without structure is just vanity.
It's vanity that leads directly to bankruptcy. We have seen big fleets collapse. On the outside, they looked massive and successful. On the inside, they were pure chaos.
So let's look at the other side of the coin then, the promised land. If we actually do this work, if we manage the people, clarify the expectations, build the robust systems, what does the business actually look like?
It looks boring, and I mean that as the highest compliment.
Boring is very good in logistics. Boring means predictable.
Exactly. The source describes a state where the business scales without the constant chaos. You get improved driver retention because people actually like working in a sane environment. You get much better cost control because the processes are actually being followed.
So your margins improve, not just your turnover.
That is the holy grail. But emotionally, for the owner, it means moving from firefighter-in-chief to actually being a CEO. You stop reacting to today's crisis and you start planning for next year's strategy.
That is a huge shift in identity. You have to be willing to let go of the steering wheel, literally and metaphorically, and trust the engine you have built.
And that engine is your people. Not the trucks. It's the people.
It brings us right back to that core paradox we started with. We think growth is about assets. We think it's about metal and rubber and warehouse space. But the Greystride article makes a really compelling case that growth is almost entirely a psychological and cultural challenge.
It completely reframes the job description. If you run a fleet, you aren't a truck manager. You are a change manager. As long as you are growing, you are changing. If you ignore that part of the job, the trucks simply won't save you.
It reminds me of that old saying, what got you here won't get you there.
It's a cliche because it is absolutely true. The skills that got you to 5 trucks, the hustle, the grit, the micromanagement, those are the exact skills that will kill you at 50 trucks. You have to evolve.
So for the listener who is feeling that friction right now, maybe they are right in that 10 to 20 truck danger zone. Where do they start tomorrow morning? Do they call a huge meeting? Do they fire Dave? And please don't fire Dave. We love Dave.
Please, do not fire Dave. Just get his knowledge into a database.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think the real starting point is a conversation with the team, not a lecture. A listening session. Ask the drivers, ask the admin staff, where is the friction? What new process is actually making your life harder?
That requires some real humility. You have to be ready to hear that your brilliant new idea is actually a complete disaster on the ground.
It does. But that feedback loop is the very first step of real change management. Once you understand the resistance, then you can solve for it.
I love that. Start by listening. It's cheap, it's effective, and it solves the ivory tower problem immediately.
And it signals to the team that you are in this together. That goes a very long way.
We have covered a lot of ground today, from the myth of easy growth to the harsh reality of blown tires and burnt-out dispatchers. I think the message is clear. You cannot just buy your way to a bigger business. You have to lead your way there.
Very well said.
I want to wrap up with a final thought for you, the listener. We always like to leave you with a question to chew on during your commute or your next long haul. What is the provocation for today?
I would go back to the feeling of the work. If you are a business owner or a manager, take a quiet moment and just ask yourself, does my growth feel purposeful or does it just feel painful?
Painful versus purposeful.
Because if it feels painful, if every new contract feels like a threat rather than a win, you aren't managing your fleet. You are surviving it. And the question is, are you too busy counting your trucks to notice that your people are checking out?
Are you surviving your own fleet? That cuts incredibly deep. Thank you for that insight. And thank you to everyone for listening to this deep dive. Hopefully we've given you a few tools to stop the firefighting and start building. We will catch you on the next one.